into a fine art.
I thought you were going to say you were getting down towards adopting my level of carelessness.
No, I still put quite a bit of effort into it. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah, right.
Hello and welcome to the Scrambled Checksum podcast, and Merry Christmas to you all next week. Because the way our upload schedule works, this one will be going live on the 16th of December. Now, I'm feeling extremely Christmassy considering we're recording this on Black Friday, the mecca of consumerism, and the best day of the year for just what Christmas is all about, buying needless tat on the internet. And I'm joined here with Ethan. Ethan, what are your Black Friday deals that you're rushing out to trample and push down your fellow man to purchase?
I thought I might start, prepping for the oncoming apocalypse. So
okay, you get looking for Black Friday deals on like tins of beans.
Yeah, I mean I went to my local Asda to buy a shotgun, and then I remembered that I don't live in the US, so I couldn't.
I thought you were going to say like you went to your local Asda and you strangled someone to death in the checkout line.
No, I bought a carving knife and one of those electric turkey carvers.
One of the electric turkey carvers.
Yeah.
They don't actually cut very cleanly. They just shred.
Well, that's fine. I think if I applied that to someone's face, probably...
yeah, more of a shredder than a cutter.
And I also bought a not a sponsor, Jackery power supply, and also an EcoFlow battery and an Anchor, whatever the hell it's called, for balance to power said turkey shredder.
You can tell that Ethan watches different YouTube channels to what I watch because all of my ads were for stuff like diesel generators, coal fires, single-use phone chargers, disposable vapes.
Getting rid of immigrants.
That's not true, by the way. I love YouTube Premium, so I don't see any ads. I actively seek out that content. No. That is obviously a joke. Now,
is
Ethan,
it though, Kieran? Is it though?
Every joke has
Did you not? Truth. Yeah. Did you not once say? A wise man once said.
Every joke. Now, if you're sick of this consumerism that happened when you're watching this episode 3 weeks ago, then you might want to simplify your life, and you might want to slim things down, and you might want to think, let's have a simpler time where we weren't just addicted to our phones. And we went out and we touched grass. We touched grass so much that we actually had to step down from our position at the BBC. Now,
oh no!
You might.
Oh no!
That's topical when this went out. By the time that this goes out, it's going to be out of date. You know who I'm talking about, though.
Well, I'm actually not 100. It could be a number of people.
Any one of a number of that's the sad part.
It's I don't know which one, but
allegedly,
hopefully one of the less controversial ones.
But... Allegedly, yeah, hopefully nothing more controversial.
I mean, I don't know how controversial it is actually. To be fair, I mean, some of them shouldn't really be controversial. They're just pretty black and white abhorrent. But anyway, that's not what this podcast.
Yeah, allegedly. Anyway, all of that allegedly. So if you wanted to simplify your life, you might get something like the Minimalist app, which, if you've heard of it. Which I think, Ethan, you haven't heard of the Minimalist app, right?
No, when you put this on the topic doc, I thought it was a category of apps. I didn't realize it was a specific app.
Oh, no, this is a specific app. If you want to Google it really quickly while I explain what it is.
Right, okay.
Because you need to see a screenshot of it, really. So it's an app that you pay for that turns your smartphone into a feature phone, effectively. So it sets your... You have seen it?
I've seen... something in my YouTube recommended about it, something to do with this, and then wait, I'm assuming is it a launcher for Android?
I have no idea, so I've not really looked into it because it's a paid for thing. I've not obviously bought it, but it's like
pay to make your several $1,000 smartphone less functional.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with, right? Because it's you pay. It's the fact that it makes your phone look really bland. And their argument for that is that the bright colours that apps like Instagram use for their like icons and their notifications lure you in like a moth to a flame, and you find it irresistible to click on the shiny, red and purple gradient app icon. and it sucks you in that way. So it makes everything really boring. And you can control like what apps are immediately available to you to launch, I think, and what you have to like search for. And then you can set time limits for each of your apps. But what I'm struggling with is like, is that not just digital well-being that you can do for free? And
Not
like,
putting it on your home screen.
yeah, do you have to make your phone look ugly? Not that's probably too harsh. Like that's subjective. Some people probably like the kind of streamlined look, but I feel like you could achieve that without kind of bricking your phone.
Was it getminimalist.com?
Yeah, that's the one. It feels a bit like it feels like a Silicon Valley like conjured up solution to a problem that had already been solved for free, but that you have to now pay for.
Simple,
To get the
shareable
like.
to-do list. Oh no, this is not it.
I'm sure it's called minimalist.
Minimalist is a to-do application.
Okay. Wait. Did you? It might be minimalism. Oh no, I've given it the wrong name.
Cut. No.
No, have you found it?
No.
It is minimalist.
No. Honestly, look at minimalist is a to-do app, like a Microsoft to-do sort of thing.
No, minimalistphone.com.
Oh, that's not what I was looking at.
Oh yeah. Look at minimalistphone.com. It's a launcher app, by the way, to answer your question. Oh yeah, there's a to-do list as well.
Not an iOS thing then.
Well, that's a good start. There's a skincare app, a to-do list app, and then this app.
Fantastic. So good branding.
Yeah, it's good branding right off the hop. And it's supposed to improve. This feels like a Silicon Valley invention. That it's like solving a problem that you don't need.
This also feels like a launcher that I've seen that you can get for free.
Yeah, right. It's like it's not complicated. They call it an elegant interface that supports mindfulness. I call it a black screen with a clock and a few apps on it. Like that's a feature phone. That's not a mindfulness thing. No one's selling a feature phone,
it
right?
It looks
saying,
like the always-on display that many phones already have.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the idea, it's like, oh, you can control your phone. But it's like, you can control your phone in other ways without...
Have a look.
Without doing all this nonsense.
I'm going to go on the Play Store.
It just looks like... It's got good reviews. People do rave about it. Like, there are people that love this.
Yeah, Sims and YouTubers and TikTokers.
Well, I don't even know if it's YouTubers, but like I can definitely imagine the TikTok crowd being like, "Oh my god, it changed my life." But this is why it makes me feel like it's a Silicon Valley invention, because it's like, could you not just achieve this by putting time limits on your apps in digital wellbeing?
Do you want to know what data it shares with third parties about you?
Well, they say it's GDPR compliant, so don't ask me
data
more
that
stupid
may be
questions.
shared with other companies or organizations. Personal information, your email address, app functionality, developer communications and account management, device or other IDs for advertising and marketing, app activity, so basically everything you open on your phone because you're using it as a launcher, app information and performance, crash logs, diagnostics, and other app performance data. So nice and vague. So basically it's spying on you. Good work.
But you have to pay for it.
Well, it doesn't say anything about payment on here.
Oh, it's a free trial for 7 days, and then it's either... So get this, the pricing is a subscription-based model. So you pay $4.99 a month for a monthly, or you can pay $21.43 a year, or you can buy it outright for $30. Which to me makes no sense.
Maybe one of the only apps I've ever paid more than a few bucks for, not to mention the fact that is one-off payment that essentially gives you a phone you can transfer to any phone you have in the future. What?
Oh, they're saying that like you don't need to learn the UI of your phone because you can just... It's actually more expensive in the UK.
That's just buying another Android phone, but
yeah.
Cool.
It's like if you have a Samsung phone, you're gonna... Yeah. By the way, it's more expensive in the UK. That pricing was for US. It's a lot more expensive in the UK.
Nice. As someone with ADHD, I find the mindfulness delays extremely helpful and love the timers. Hiding apps is great, although be careful blocking apps for a period of time, as there is no way to unblock them without deleting the minimalist from your phone, which can be helpful as long as you know. Love it.
I'd like to block the minimalist app from my phone.
Yeah, me too.
For my own well-being, because it would frustrate me too much, and I'm wasting my money on that.
You know what I did to stop me going on Instagram and Facebook and all those? I deleted the apps.
Well, this is the thing, and like I can kind of see the pain point they're trying to address, but it's like, and I feel bad because like these people clearly do get benefit from it. They're not like paid shills saying these things, but like I feel as though they're being taken advantage of by the fact that they just aren't maybe aware that you can do all these by default with digital wellbeing.
Okay. The digital well-being thing. I mean, I did try that before I decided to just go cold turkey on social media, and I found that I'd hit my limit on, say, Instagram, and then I'd be like, oh well, I just want 5 more minutes, and then I'd just turn it off.
Was it too easy to extend? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't. There wasn't an option to extend it, but then you just go into settings and turn because there wasn't like a snooze thing. You just turn it off because you're like, oh well, I was halfway through a video or something, and then before you know it, you spent another hour doom scrolling. So it just didn't really work. And
so
then
you had to uninstall them.
And again, like setting the thing, you could set your screen to go black and white after a certain time. But again, I just found that annoying because it's like I don't have a regular bedtime necessarily. Like sometimes I need to get up earlier than other days, and I'd be like, so on some days I'd be like sitting there in bed just finishing watching a YouTube video, and then suddenly everything goes black and white. So I'd end up just turning that off, and then I don't know. I found like that there's not really an antidote to just learning self-control. There's
and do you think this solves the problem?
Not like if an alternative.
Do you think this solves the problem?
No.
Do you think it's just like you'd be better off uninstalling the apps?
Yeah. Or just getting a phone that physically is incapable of doing the things.
Well, that's what I don't get, because like in the UK, this app for a year costs £30. It's like, is it worth £30 a year when how much is a feature phone?
You could probably get them for about £30.
So like you can either get this app for a year that you then have to renew. Well, to buy it lifetime is £50.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it worth it to turn
lifetime, assuming it stays around that long?
Yeah, exactly. I assume there'll be some kind of while it lives. But like, so you pay for the lifetime license for £50, but then I don't know. I'm struggling a bit with like
an AI phone.
I have no clue.
Anyway, do continue.
But like, if you spend £50 on this for the lifetime license, what I'm struggling a bit with is like, would you not rather have your smartphone have all its features, and then you just lock it away at night, and then just have your feature phone?
Well, yeah, this.
Like, do you want to turn your phone into this black and white monochrome?
No. The thing, this is the conclusion I came to. I thought about the whole feature phone thing, and I was like, right, well, what's the alternative? So if I get a feature phone, what can it do? Well, it can send SMSs. Well, I don't use SMS for messaging. I use WhatsApp, so that requires a smartphone. And phone calls. Well, I use WhatsApp for phone calls most of the time at home anyway, because I've got no phone signal where I live because I live in a black hole. So I couldn't actually use it as anything at home. What else do I use my phone for on a regular basis? Navigation. Couldn't do that. So basically, by getting rid of my phone's capability to do the things that I'm saying I don't want it to distract me by doing, I'm also getting rid of all the functionality that I actually need my phone to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could go, oh, well, you could buy a separate sat-nav. Yes, I could. But most of them are shit. In fact, all of them are shit. And the ones that aren't shit are expensive and usually require a hotspot connection from your smartphone in order to get things like traffic data and map updates and things like that. So, need something, or you carry around a hotspot. So now that's a feature phone, a hotspot, and a sat nav. Oh, I want to listen to some music. Okay, I guess I'll get an MP3 player as well. So now that's 4 things that I have to carry around with me. And it's starting to get expensive, and I lose things enough as it is. I know, why don't I just, have a smartphone and maybe learn to control myself a little bit better?
So the solution for you wouldn't be turning your smartphone into I say turning it into a feature phone. It can still do all the stuff it can do. It's just you have to the UI becomes a bit less convenient. You have to search for maps to open it.
Well, no, not even that. I just, well, to be honest, I mostly just got rid of the things that I was doom scrolling. I was just you know what? I'm not getting anything positive from this. Get rid.
What's bothering me about it is this feels like it should. If this was an open source, free to use app, would you have any problem with it, or would you be like, this is really cool?
I wouldn't use it, but I mean,
because that's my problem with it. It's a subscription. Because to me, it then makes it something that people, I don't know. It's another. I think it just feels like another cynical cash grab. That's basically. Yeah, it feels like
starter.
Huel. It feels like a kind of Huel type thing, where it's oh, don't you hate having the inconvenience of cooking meals for yourself? Just have this liquid food that you pay us for on a subscription.
Yeah, looks the same when it goes in one end as when it comes out the other.
Allegedly. And it's turn your phone. I don't know, it feels very hipster, not hipster, Silicon Valley, venture capital. We're all, it's what I would
Have you ever consumed a Huel?
No.
Have you not?
No, I've never had one.
I have.
What they're like?
They're nice. They're all right.
Oh, okay. No, I've never tried one.
I've only had one that, they're quite expensive when you buy them pre-mixed.
Yeah. I didn't realize they had.
I had them a couple of times. Basically, the times I've had them were when I was on the move at work and I hadn't had a chance to have breakfast, and I also wasn't going to have time because I was going to be driving. I wasn't going to have time to eat anything. So having something that would at least make me feel like I'd eaten something that I could kind of drink on the go. I went for that. And then the other time was when I had a wobbly tummy, but I was in work and needed energy, and I couldn't bring myself to eat food, but I needed something to give me some energy, so I had a Huel. And
I'll have to try one because I've always been kind of intrigued by them.
It's just like a milkshake, really.
It's like a protein shake.
Yeah, I mean that is essentially what it is, but it's not got any artificial stuff.
That's kind of cool. See, this didn't feel like that. This app feels more like it feels more like it's mental health, but you pay us every month for it.
Yeah, which is bullshit. I'm already against it. Anything that takes your money and claims to improve your mental health but doesn't is a particular pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, it's what makes me feel of the Silicon Valley thing of look, be mindful, be well, be healthy and happy, and
how about this?
Comfortable in yourself.
Fucking shitty app idea and shove it up your relative urethras.
Yeah, it's absolutely
relevant urethras.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the same. I was curious to get your take on it because I know you've looked at stuff like this before. Interestingly, no iOS version.
Well, yeah, you can't have a custom launcher.
Yeah, they have a waiting list for an iOS app. I wish them well.
That will not happen.
No, good luck getting this to work on iOS.
How would that work?
Yeah, if you think you're ever getting this on iOS in the current
I don't think you could even have an app that you open that then launches other apps.
No, I feel for the dev. If you're on the dev team at Minimalist, I feel for you having to develop that iPhone app because
I don't. Go and get a better job.
No, they'll probably just be hardworking devs who are probably cringing themselves to death when they.
No, go get a different job. Go and do something useful with your time. Shame on you.
Basically, just fork the project, open source it.
No, don't even do that. The world doesn't need it. Just
Doesn't
go
need
and
it,
do
it's
something
unnecessary.
useful.
Yeah, this is like mass-produced plastic tap in app form that you pay for every month.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite glad that you didn't like it either.
Go and I tell you what, go and try and figure out a way of making a user-friendly alternative to the Google Play Store and a de-Googled Android that runs on more than just Google Pixels. Get that going. I will pay money for it. Do that. Privacy focused. The world needs that. Do that one.
Yeah, so like that's the something you would actually pay money for, where you feel like you're getting value for your money versus paying money for something that still collects your data and also probably isn't worth what they're charging for it.
Yeah.
And
No, go and start developing for Nova Launcher. Do that.
there you go.
There we go. Do that.
Yeah, Lord knows they need it.
Yeah, they
and
haven't had an
speaking of-
update in several months, and it's getting buggier and buggier by the day, and I'm going to have to stop using it at some point because it's getting quite
by the
frustrating.
minute.
Yeah, it's got to the point now where probably 20% of the time when I swipe to go home, it crashes.
Oh no, that's quite bad actually.
Kind of
It's
frustrating.
like by the time this podcast episode ends, you're gonna be your phone will have crashed 100 more times.
Yeah. I'm
speaking-
kind of hesitant to. I finally got the my Pixel 6 Pro has finally got the notification for Android 15, I think it is.
Oh wow.
The same week that Android 16 was announced.
Wonderful. At least you're
but-
still getting updates.
Yeah, but I'm hesitant to install it because I'm partly feeling like Nova Launcher might just stop working altogether.
There's no way it's going to cope with that. Not a chance.
Yeah.
It'll be buggier than ever. Speaking of another community, a software community with some problems, but different problems.
Yeah.
You've just recently found out about the WordPress drama.
Yes, via a podcast, and being well, I don't know a lot about web development, as you know, Kieran.
Oh no, me neither. Don't worry.
Yes, but but Kieran,
It's true, I don't.
Kieran working in the digital marketing and content and blah 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 space for a number of years is much more closely linked with it than I am. So, what the fuck's going on, Kieran?
So from what I understand, and I've seen a few videos on this, so WordPress, I'm sure everyone watching knows, it's a platform that you can, PHP based, that you can use to host your blog. That's what it's designed for, but you know, there's plugins to turn it into like an e-commerce store and all sorts.
Yeah, they're the guys that own WP Engine, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. They bought them. Yes, that's the source of the problem, is that WordPress is open source, but they have a commercial arm which sells hosting of WordPress sites. So you can get WordPress for free.
But that's not WP Engine, right?
That's not WP Engine. They just own WP Engine. No, I'm just kidding. So you can get WordPress for free and host it anywhere you like. And it's open source, and you can kind of do whatever for it. It's quite an open platform. You can install plugins for it. A lot of them are free. Again, it's kind of like an open sourcey kind of community. There's plugins that sell subscriptions, paid versions.
It also is, well, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a content management system.
Yeah, CMS, content management system.
And
so,
am I right in saying that it is basically like the highest percentage, or like the majority? It's the majority of websites basically use this on the internet.
Not quite.
It's not like
Not
over
quite.
50%, but in terms of like percentage share compared to all the other CMSs.
I think it's been beaten out now by stuff like Shopify.
Oh, I didn't realize Shopify had a CMS. I thought that was a plugin.
No, Shopify is its own. Shopify is kind of different to WordPress. So if you wanted a WordPress site, you have to host it, unless you go with WordPress.org or whatever they call their commercial bit. It might be WordPress.com. Shopify, you pay them a
.org,
monthly.
I believe, is the open source bit.
Yes, .com is the
.com is not
the
open
hosting,
source,
I think.
and that's the whole the podcast I was listening to, basically the whole ownership schedule, like structure is a complete mess.
It's kind of weird.
Like, deliberately obfuscated to confuse people, it seems.
Yeah, it's kind of like an interesting model. It feels like it was started for the right reasons, but kind of over time, when there's more money to be made, stuff kind of gets a little bit muddied. But yeah, it's widely used. A lot of websites are run on WordPress.
Including YouTube. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, believe it.
Including Google.com.
Yeah, actually, Facebook is hosted on. Yeah, if you go to facebook.com/wp-admin, you'll see that you got a WordPress backend login.
Yeah.
No, so it's really widely used, and from what I gather, the drama is that WordPress is open source, and the guy that founds it, he's outwardly big into open source and community contributions, but there's a company called there's a lot of companies that kind of make their money in the WordPress ecosystem, kind of like there is in a lot of these like open source ecosystems, right? Where like there's certain tooling that you need, and there's like the de facto one, and it might have like a paid version. And basically, WP Engine are a company that will host a WordPress site for you. So you can go to WP Engine and you can say, I'd like a WordPress site set up. And they've got some tooling that makes it easy to manage your WordPress site and update your plugins and roll back to previous working versions if you screw something up. And I've used it, actually. It's quite good. I thought it was quite good. I've not used a ton of other WordPress hosts, but I've not used WordPress.com, for example. But from what I gather, the problem
Apparently, WordPress.com doesn't actually have any support for rollback.
Really?
This is purely based on the podcast I was listening to, which is the Destination Linux podcast.
Wow. Yeah, I've never used WordPress.com as a host. I've only ever used WP.
Yeah, apparently it's a pretty subpar. It's very expensive compared to alternatives, and the functionality isn't as good.
That's why I've never used it, because I've always priced it and it's been expensive. It feels a bit like it's kind of like a Squarespace-y type model where they're expensive for the hosting. I don't know. I just never bothered. I've either self-hosted through a VPS or used like a WP Engine.
Yeah.
And not had any problems with those. And from what I gather, WP Engine was seen by WordPress. By WordPress, I mean the CEO of WordPress, who I think is called Matt.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, because he's got a company called Automatic, and it's spelled like Matt. He saw WP Engine as profiting off of the WordPress ecosystem and not contributing their fair share to the open source the open source side of things. So he was like, these guys are making like billions in revenue. I think it was high millions, hundreds of millions or billions in revenue, but they're not like giving up as much engineer time as they should be to the WordPress community. And they're also not paying to license the WP name. Which you didn't used to have to do.
Also, well, apparently it even actually says on their website that you can't use WordPress in your company name or trademark.
But WP is allowed.
But you can use other things that might be similar. For example, WP. It specifically says you can use WP, and now he's going after them for using WP. Which seems like a fool's errand, but
from what I gather, he has a personal issue with WP Engine, and
yeah.
I funnily enough, when it first came out, I could kind of see his point in that they were making a lot of money off the WordPress ecosystem, and they weren't giving enough back to the open source project. But what I struggled with was that he was then starting to, threaten them with all sorts of actions for not giving back enough to the WordPress community when they had no, legal obligation to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was legally they didn't have to. I think he would have done a lot better if he would have just come out and been like, hey guys, notice you're not giving as much engineering time as maybe you should to the WordPress community. Any chance that you could maybe change that?
Yeah.
And it could have been that could have been, and people would have probably been supporting him.
You
Whereas,
catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
yeah, whereas instead he was at like the main WordPress like conference and basically, from what I gather, gave them a few hours before he went on and basically said, I'm going to trash you if you guys don't agree to give us some ridiculous number of their revenue, like 10% of the revenue he wanted or something absolutely astronomical.
And
Because
revenue,
like if you don't,
doing that based on revenue is just stupid as well.
it was something like that, or even if it was profits, like who's going to give up 10% of their profits in like 3 hours notice from a guy who's going to go and anyway, he was like, oh, or I'll trash you at this conference. So he trashed them at the conference because they didn't agree to that, and everyone felt a bit kind of weird about it from what I gather. And then he started going after them in like more and more aggressive and kind of unhinged ways.
Yeah. Didn't a load of people, didn't he, a load of people resign as well? He kind of went like, if you don't agree with this, then
you're welcome to resign
and you'll get like a 6-month severance package.
Yeah, and then a bunch of people resigned over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's kind of funny. That's like kind of people were like, oh yeah, okay then. Yeah, I'll have 6 months pay for free.
Yeah.
Sure.
Find another job. I don't know, it just felt very like it felt like a very personal attack. And I think a lot of the I saw an interview with him where he was trying to like defend it, and it felt like a lot of what he said was that he personally felt upset about what they were doing.
Yeah.
And realistically maybe how much money they were making, and was like, oh, I'm going after them. And anytime he was kind of like pressed on like, okay, I understand that you feel that they should be giving you this much and they should be doing this much for the community, but what have they signed to say they're going to do that? Or like what legal reason do they have to do that? And he was like, oh, well, other companies have signed contracts with us for X, Y, Z. And it's like, yeah, but why? I'm not saying the WP Engine are great in this either, because they perhaps don't do as much as they should for the open source, but now people are taking their side.
It's not the way to go about it, like you said.
No, and then he started like I don't know if this has been resolved yet, but he restricted WP Engine's access to WordPress updates. So if you were a site that was running on WP Engine, in theory, I think you couldn't get WordPress core updates. Which to me just seems like a shitty thing to do, because you're punishing users that had, like, if you were a user, you weren't thinking, oh, screw WordPress, I'm going to go with WP Engine.
Well, didn't they even recommend WP Engine on their own website?
I think at some point in the past they probably did, yeah. And it just always feels like a shit thing to do, right? To punish users.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I'm trying to think of an example that would be. It felt kind of like how no one was really jumping to Apple's side when they took Epic Games apps off the App Store.
Yeah.
It's like it just hurts the users at that point.
Yeah.
It's like if Google stopped you from installing Facebook on your Android phone because they were like, oh, Facebook don't pay us to use the Android ecosystem. Kindness,
to be fair.
It probably would be. People will probably applaud. But like, no one, because Android's open source, right? Or it'd be like if yes. Google were like, oh, we feel that Microsoft haven't put enough dev time into Chromium, so now Edge doesn't work anymore. We're stopping them being able to get updates.
I mean, so again, now if that would be a kindness.
That probably would be a but what about Brave Browser then? What about Brave Browser? They're like, Brave Browser doesn't give enough dev time to Chromium. We're stopping them getting any security patches going forward. They're gonna have to do it themselves. Because it's like, if you use Brave Browser, that's not your fault that they haven't done that, but you're the one getting punished for that effectively.
Yeah.
And then there was all sorts of weirdness with, like, there's a plugin called Advanced Custom Fields that tons of WordPress sites use. You kind of have to, and they were like, they kind of publicly disclosed a vulnerability they found in it, I think, and then they took over the project and forked it, but then made it the like primary. It was really shady stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my understanding of the drama. What was your takeaway from your kind of podcast source that you saw? Was it that Matt was kind of gone too far?
Yeah, I think it was just like it just seemed like a whole just like unnecessary situation. Like they could have picked up the phone and had a chat instead. He decided to try and strong arm them, and now it's a mess.
Yeah, it really was just like I don't understand why. I don't understand
There's
why
got to
he
be
felt.
more to the story that we don't know about. That's like not publicly available. I think like it doesn't. It does something doesn't add up. It is. It's just like you say. It's just a weird. It's just a very weird
It
scenario. Like something's
whatever
got
it
to have
is.
gone on behind the scenes.
Yeah, whatever it is, just shouldn't have been. No user should have been affected by that, should they?
No, it's just
Like,
petty, is what it.
yeah,
Just like
it's like
grow up.
you shouldn't be affecting your users with these kind of like corporate disputes between two companies.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like, oh, I don't like this company and what they're doing, so anyone that's using their tool, I'm gonna. I don't know. It feels very like, especially in tech, where it's quite easy for you to strong arm on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the Tesla thing when they were disabling supercharging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's very much like punishing users. But yeah, that's my kind of take on it. Is that it's all this big unnecessary drama, really.
Yeah. Most drama
And
is.
and speaking of unnecessary dramas,
Marques being a very naughty boy very briefly.
yes, that
Yeah.
was an unnecessary drama, wasn't it?
Well,
Not as
I
in
wouldn't
the
even,
drama was
I'm not even sure
unnecessary,
it's
but what was
drama.
in...
It's not even a controversy. Just doing 96
Well, no.
in a 35 zone is just not cool, guys. Don't do
No,
that.
like, don't... What?
It doesn't
And
matter, no matter how many subscribers you have.
It doesn't gel with his, like, image at all, either.
No.
Because he was the, like, chill, like... I don't know, he was the guy who'd risen above all the tech scandals.
It's not the first time he's sped in a YouTube video. That's the interesting
Is it not? I didn't realise that.
No, he's done it in other car reviews. It's just the first time he's done it in a place where it obviously says that the speed limit's 35 miles an hour.
Well, that's what frustrated me, because I'm not going to sit here and do some, like, oh, I've never gone over the speed limit.
Oh, neither have I.
But, like, exactly.
I've never.
I've never actually hit the speed limit.
Apart from that one time, like I say, when I hired that private dragster.
Yeah, when you hired a private racetrack, exactly.
Yeah,
And I was the same when I hired a private circuit under the tutelage of a professional driver.
Yeah.
And it's
I am
such
a
like
professional driver, so.
yeah, exactly. It's the fact that he took what's basically like the world's most forgivable crime and made it kind of unforgivable. Yeah, because like that is pretty much like there's people that defend a lot of very shitty behavior, unfortunately, online.
Yeah.
But I feel like speeding, if you're going to have a controversy, going over the speed limit is probably about the least controversial controversy you can have, unless you do it like he did.
Yeah. Yeah, i.e. 61 miles an hour over the speed limit in a residential area with children about.
It's like if he'd have gone out at 3 a.m. on the motorway and gone 105.
Nobody would care.
With nothing around.
I wouldn't even care.
No, there'll be people there'll probably be like 2 or 3 people in the comments that they'd all get clowned on.
Yeah, I'd probably go, well, I probably wouldn't do that.
You're like,
I'd probably get quite pissed off if that person went flying past me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be like, yeah.
I think it's because at that point, like, you're the most likely person you are to hurt is yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you want to do that, you do you.
Yeah, if you want to kill yourself, go for it.
Even if you want to take that risk.
Don't do that.
It's like if you want to it's like if you want to take that risk.
Yeah.
You know, you're an adult. You're probably not. You're extremely unlikely to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's on you. Do your own thing. But then, that's what it was. Was it the fact that he was in like a 30 zone?
Yeah.
And it was. I think what pissed me off the most was the fact that they tried to blur the speedometer.
That was just the biggest cell phone. It's very funny. That
Even if
basically
they
he was in a
successfully
car that was
blurred.
so decadent it had 2 speed sensors, and they forgot to blur the other one. Like how
Oh, it was such an oversight, right?
it's just perfect. It's just yeah.
It was quite. That was like the funniest part of what was quite a serious situation was the fact that they forgot to blur the second speedometer, which like 99% of cars don't have.
Yeah.
And it's a fact. What were they going to do if they didn't have a second speedometer? Just leave it in and be like, oh, he's going 32.
Well, yeah. I mean, it blurred. Yeah, I think it blurs after 30. But it's like
Blurred is bad enough because it's like, come on, who are you trying to fool at that point?
Well, I think at that point they're not trying to fool anybody. They're just going, well, you can't prove what the speed was, so.
I know, but like it feels to me a bit galling that he's like.
It's pretty standard practice. They're not the only ones that do that.
I know they're not the only ones, but like most of the examples I've seen is when it's been people on like a motorway or something exceeding the speed limit, and it's kind of like a wink, wink. That feels more like you should be ashamed that you've gone that far over.
Yeah.
And you should be like cutting that out before the video goes live if you've recorded that.
Yeah.
Rather than like the blurring feels a bit like everyone does it, and it's kind of like, oh, hey guys, don't worry about it. I was going the speed limit, and it's kind of excusable because it's one of those situations where you're just putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
But it was just it was. So
I think you've
funny
hit the
that-
nail on the head because, like I've said, like speeding for me, like personally, I don't speed deliberately, very often.
No.
I mean, sorry, ever.
Ever, yeah, exactly, ever.
If you do speed, so say doing 80 on a clear motorway, like you say, not really putting anyone really in any more danger than doing 70, really, not significantly. Speeding in a residential area, fuck off.
Yeah, it's like
It just why? Don't because it's just not worth it.
it's like if that was an empty like countryside road, there's no one about, it's late at night, and he's going 65 in a 40. I got no problems with that. If he crashes, he's probably gonna hurt himself, and it's foolish, and you could argue that it's not a good example to set and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is fair. But to me personally,
Equally though, okay, I'm going to share a story, something that happened to me in the last few weeks. There's a country lane that I frequent on my commute, and it's an A road, so it's got well, no, it's a B road, but it's got 2 lanes. It's a proper 2-way road.
not single track.
Not single track. And it's national speed limit. But basically at the start of it, you kind of come out of a residential area into the national, and it's immediately downhill into a kind of sweeping 90-degree, well, quite tight 90-degree turn. Not like you could maintain traction doing like 50 around it, but it wouldn't be safe to do that because there's a hedgerow on either side, so you can't really see what's coming. So really, like the safe speed to go round it is about 35 in order to be able to stop if something's round the corner. So you should never go round. You should always be able to stop in the distance you can see is clear. Important rule whilst driving that most people don't seem to follow.
From a professional driver, by the way.
Yeah. And that means that you also need to adjust your speed if road conditions mean that you have less traction. Also an important thing to note. Or if it's foggy and you can't see as far. Another thing to note. Anyway, I'm coming round this corner about 35, and it was particularly lethal Now, the mistake I made here is I should have gone slower than 35 because I had someone right up my arse. But I didn't, which very nearly potentially cost me my life.
Oh God.
So as I come round the corner, I can see headlights of it because it's dark at this point. It's I mean it's winter. It's autumn now, so I can't remember.
So it was about 4 p.m. and it was pitch black.
I think it was probably about 5:30 in the evening. I can see. Well, I can see that there's a car coming the other way, but only from the fact that I can see the shine of its headlights. As I come round the corner, I see a car with what appears to be full beam on.
Ugh.
It then dips its full beam to reveal another car right next to it, overtaking it.
Oh my God, that's stupid.
And it is literally feet away from the corner, a blind corner. So I obviously slam my brakes on, swearing profusely. The person behind me very nearly goes into the back of me, and I avoided a head-on collision with this van, which, watching the dash cam footage back, I think it missed me by probably a couple of meters.
That's horrible.
But
that's like everyone's at fault there. You were getting tailgated, vans overtaken.
Yeah, it was.
Guys blinded you with the beams.
Yeah, it was like the perfect storm of events. Like that very easily could have been game over. If I'd arrived, if I'd arrived at that corner like a second later, I'd have been toast.
And yet, if you'd have brake checked the guy tailgating you 1 mile before, you would have been the bad guy.
Yeah. It was very close to that. That person was very. They were not paying attention at all. Unfortunately, because it was dark and because of the headlights and everything, I didn't get the registration of the van. So I wasn't.
Even on the dash cam.
So I wasn't able to report it. But just what were we talking about? Yeah,
new Marques video coming out about a van review.
Yeah, that was my that as an example of how dangerous it can be driving on a country lane in the dark at faster speeds than you should be doing on that country lane. That was what it is. Yeah, you were saying 65 in a 40 zone on a country lane late at night. That's my rebuttal for that.
I was thinking like a straight, like, you know those A roads that were like Roman roads.
Yeah,
it's like a long straight.
Yeah.
To be fair, they're all full of speed cameras. They're all full of speed cameras anyway. So good luck to you if you're doing that. But like Marquez's thing is just like another level beyond that, I would say, because it's just like 3 times the speed limit. There's just nothing.
Yeah. The problem isn't so much the speed; it's the attitude. It's driving recklessly. In this particular example, that was doing 61 miles an hour over the speed limit in a residential area. But recklessly can be in a lot of forms. It can be accelerating way too fast for the to be able to observe properly. It can be cornering at a speed that means that you wouldn't actually be able to stop if something came at you. You know, it can be any number of things, really.
Here's my question that I didn't come up with myself. Well, I kind of came up with it myself, but it was more an angle that was taken from a video I saw on the whole thing that I thought was very balanced. I think it was by Evan Erdiger. But I think it was anyway. I could be wrong about that.
He's actually how I found out about it, to be honest, because I didn't actually... I saw that video and I didn't watch it. I clicked on it and I saw there was a load of comments complaining about it being a blatant shill sponsor thing. And then I watched just long enough to see who it was, and I was like, "Oh God,
you see enough ads for DJI
in this." And then I saw the Evan Edinger video on it, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I also saw Legal Eagle did a video on it.
Oh, I saw that one too.
He thinks that Marques has learnt from it.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah, so that's good.
He'll never upload a video with that in again. Yeah, that's the most important thing, I think.
He's learnt his lesson, Kieran. So
he's learnt his lesson. If he's when he next commits his crimes, he won't upload them onto YouTube.
Yeah, I'm reassured.
I'm really confident that he's no longer going to upload any more crimes onto the internet.
Yeah, we jinxed.
I think he's.
Because we said that
we were saying what a good boy he was.
Marques was a saint after the whole LTT.
We said he was like a good boy, and
at least we've still got Marques. That's what we said.
We did.
Little did we know. It must be something about this time of year.
Next thing we know, Tom Scott's going to be on there.
Oh,
I don't
Jesus.
know.
No, not my boy. He
I
quit.
know.
No, he quit before before a controversy could come out. It's all right.
He quit before he could turn into the monster.
Forever an angel.
The one question I had about Marquez's thing is like, so you know how he's basically suffered no repercussion from this.
Yeah, I can't believe that there's not been any kind of legal like.
I guess it's like he might argue that he had the road closed.
No, but they'd be able to look that up. They'd be like, okay,
Well,
when?
maybe he did. Maybe he did have the road closed.
But then why didn't he just say that?
Well, yeah, exactly. So he probably didn't, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It
but they'd
feels
be able
like
to check that. If he had the road closed, there would be a record of that because he'd have had whatever government agency is responsible for that highway.
I'm surprised too because it was so far over. But like, he's basically suffered no repercussions, right? Like, no sponsors, from what I understand, are going to drop him over this.
Yeah.
He'll just carry on as is. People forget about it. Realistically, even people that said it was the worst thing that he'd ever done in the comments and stuff, they'll forget. They'll watch his next videos.
I've been tempted to watch his video because like who do you go to? He's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when it comes to smartphone stuff. He is the go-to.
Yeah, well
because
filmed.
Because he does a really good job of it.
Yeah, they're well
Competent,
filmed.
well thought out, well shot.
Especially the Apple stuff.
Well, not even just the Apple. Believe it or not, when it comes to phones, he prefers Android.
Oh yeah, phones he's like the number one source for. But like, if you want to see like a new Apple thing, he tends to get them, films them really well. Like you say, well thought out, not too long.
Yeah.
Just like balanced reviews. He does the car stuff too. Again, who else is doing that with high production value? And
hot take, Marques is a piece of shit.
But it's like he's gonna suffer no repercussion from this. So my question is like, why will he suffer no repercussion from this? But like, if he'd been driving exactly the same conditions but at the speed limit, but he'd been 1.5 times over the legal limit for drinking, there's no way he'd get off with that, right?
I don't know. How would you prove that in a video?
I don't know. It's hypothetically, like he's driving and they forget to blur out the fact that he's sinking a can of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Got a bottle of special brew in one hand.
Yeah,
he's his hand.
He's there like, you know, you see him get in the car, you see him reach to the glove box and crack open his tin of special brew.
Yeah.
And he sinks it and then drives.
Yeah.
Why would he not get away with that, but he gets away with this?
I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe there wouldn't be any repercussions for that either.
Oh, 100% there would be. I think it's just that, like, it's seen... I think there's too many people... Not even too many people.
No,
I think it's just like...
Surely law enforcement would look at that in the same way that they'd look at this video.
Yeah, but I think it's like... It feels like with something like this, if nobody got hurt, it's seen as like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal, then it's fine. Is how it seems to me. It feels a bit like it's, oh, well, no one actually got hurt by it, so...
To me, that feels like the same attitude as everyone going, oh, yeah, putting hydrogen in airship gondolas is a great idea until the Hindenburg happened, and then they were like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
it's like,
wait, this could have happened the entire time? Well, fuck. Better not do that again.
It just feels like because there was no consequence from it.
Not gondola, sorry. The gondola's the bit that people...
I was going to say...
The balloon.
They were all asphyxiated in the gondola before it could have an explosion. But it just feels like...
the technical term for the balloon bit.
I don't know, the Zeppelin bit. But I don't know, it just feels like...
I don't know.
It feels like because there was no consequence from it, it's kind of like, oh, well, he's a bad boy and he won't do it again.
Yeah,
like
I said
boys
to
will
you,
be boys.
Over message, I think like the only thing that would make me kind of gain my respect back from him is if he literally just faced the music.
I think it was Evans. You'll know if you saw the same video. Didn't he say like the only way he could make it right is selling the car?
Yeah,
and like donate the money to charity.
From a marketing perspective, but for me, he needs to face criminal prosecution like any normal person would if they were caught doing that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah, that's you know, he's not. Why would you willingly turn yourself in for that? But
yeah,
like
best case scenario, he goes on a course and learns his lesson.
His speeding awareness course.
Yeah, I went on the. Yeah, guys, don't worry. I've been on the speed awareness course. I've been on the speed awareness course myself.
It turns out doing 150% of the speed limit. No, it's not even. It's 300%
Oh,
of the speed
300%
limit.
of the speeding limit.
Yeah, 300% of the speed limit is a bad idea.
Ironically, he wouldn't be eligible to go on that because he was too far over the limit, and the speed awareness course is only for people who...
I don't even know if they have that in the US.
I don't. Over here, it's like, because I went on the speed awareness course, so I didn't get points. But if I'd gone
No,
like...
because you wanted to learn your lesson, you mean?
And I'd learned my lesson. But
Yeah.
because if I'd gone like 2 miles an hour over the speed limit more, I wouldn't have been able to, because I would have been considered too much of a criminal to ever be reformed.
Yeah.
So the only way I'd learn my lesson is through a fine.
Well.
But he's learned his lesson. That's the main thing. He won't ever upload it again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the speed of vehicles,
yeah,
like how fast they might be going, how fast they might be intending to go.
Allegedly.
I drove a Chinese van for the first time.
Wow, what brand was it?
It was a Marques.
I'd never heard of them.
Well, it's one of the British brands that has been bought by
like MG.
Yeah, Cycle Automotive, yes. Owned by the exact same company as MG.
Yeah.
Marques formerly was a subsidiary or a co-brand of LDV, which is now also owned by Cycle Automotive.
They were a truck brand, right?
Commercial vehicles. I think
did they make taxis?
Mainly did vans.
Did they make the London Taxi as well, or is that someone else?
I don't know if they made the London Taxi. I do know that that company has been bought and is now called the London Electric Vehicle Company, and is owned
because they're all electric now.
Is owned by Geely, who also own Volvo.
Yeah, cars are just like everyone owns. There's about 2 car manufacturers left,
and
right?
Geely is a Chinese manufacturer. So yeah, Marques, yeah, they're very much they do electric vans. The version that I drove, there was a 6-speed manual diesel, and it was.
Oh, they do diesel too.
Yes, they did diesel first and then electric.
Oh, okay. Do they still do diesel, or are they doing?
They do, unfortunately. But it was an interesting experience. It was actually, in many ways, better to drive than a Mercedes Sprinter.
Is that what it's trying to be?
No, it's just trying to be a van. It's not trying to compete with the Sprinter in terms of, it's a lot cheaper than a Sprinter.
Well, yeah, the Sprinter is expensive, right?
Yeah, and it's not worth it. Honestly, like, if you ever drive a modern Sprinter, at least, that, like, especially a manual one, the gearboxes on them are awful. It feels like stirring a bucket of gravel.
It always surprises me because they seem to be used like almost by default as like the Amazon van.
Yeah, I mean, most of those ones are all automatic. If you've got the automatic one, those are quite nice.
Oh, okay.
They ride nicely. They unfortunately suffer from the same thing that every other Mercedes suffers from these days, which is a distinct lack of buttons for anything.
I hate that, especially in a van. It's a commercial vehicle.
Yeah, and they have touch-sensitive controls, like little swipey D-pad things on the steering wheel instead of buttons, which are really annoying to use.
Why would you have that in a commercial vehicle where they're going to get beat up and break?
Well, it gets better because the fucking trucks have it as well.
Oh my god.
It's even worse in them.
Why would you have that in a vehicle that's for... It's like you wouldn't have a cement mixer with like a touchscreen control, would you?
Well, if Mercedes made it, you would.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or it's like, can you imagine if you bought like, I don't know, you bought like a steamroller and it was like, oh yeah, you got like a touchpad interface for setting. Yeah. It would just be ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. Anyway, yeah, in terms of how it drove, quite nice, I'd say, overall. The thing that instantly got me, though, is the software was awful.
Oh no, was it a bit like a knockoff iPod from back in the day?
No, it wasn't even that. It's just missing. I could forgive it for looking dated. That's fine.
I mean,
it was more functionality. What
was it missing?
The most glaring thing it was missing is when you set cruise control, it doesn't say anywhere what speed the cruise control is set at.
Oh, and I assume there's like plenty of displays where they could show that.
Oh
And it's
yeah,
obviously logged
yeah. It
somewhere
shows that
digitally.
cruise control's active, and there's a big empty space where usually you'd expect to see the speed that it's set at, but there's nothing.
Because like my car doesn't show what speed cruise control's set at, but it's quite old now, and there is no like readout for that kind of thing that like isn't being used. It just shows me that it's active.
You see, I'd
But
say that's quite dangerous.
well, I hardly ever use it.
Yeah.
Because I don't really.
Well,
I find
also another hot take: dumb cruise control is pointless.
Yeah, I'm just like I turn it on and it's like active for about 5 seconds, then I have to turn it off again because I have to adjust my speed. So
speed limiter is way more useful than dumb cruise control, and it's a pet peeve of mine. Vehicles that have dumb cruise control but have no speed limiter.
I have both, but to be fair, I've never used the speed control, the like limiter.
The speed limiter is like I only have a speed limiter in my car, but I use it in any vehicle that doesn't have adaptive cruise control. I always use it because you could just set it, put your foot on the throttle, and then if you need to slow down a bit, you just take your foot off.
Yeah, that's what I didn't like about the cruise control.
But then you don't have to worry about. You can just keep your foot on the floor, and you don't have to worry about accidentally slipping over the speed limit or maintaining your speed, and you can effectively use it like cruise control, but with
Well, with mine, it's like if I touch the accelerator on cruise control, it just turns off.
Yeah.
So I can't go faster or slower.
Yeah,
so if I touch the accelerator or the brake, it turns off.
Completely pointless.
I've used it about 5 times ever.
Yeah, but so it's got that. The radio comes on instantly when you turn the screen on, and the only way to turn it off is to turn the volume all the way down.
Oh.
And the screen placement is awful. It's right up in the middle of the fucking dashboard, kind of obstructing your visibility a little bit. And
really
it's just
annoying.
genuinely just feels like no one actually thought out the software design.
Yeah, it was just done like cheap as possible.
Yeah, which I understand is kind of a theme throughout most of these kind of cheaper Chinese cars that are coming onto the market now.
Look, if you're going to cheap out, just cheap out. Look, don't cheap out on the software. Cheap out on the brakes, the pistons.
No, I'm not saying that, but like just cheap
no,
out
I
on
get it.
Cheap out on like the trim pieces and stuff. Like, just like I feel like it's 2024. Bad software is just inexcusable at this point. It's not hard to make a good UI. It doesn't need to look pretty, but it needs to be functional, and that's actually not very difficult. You just need to actually literally have anybody try to use it once to get rid of most of the design flaws.
This is where I think that they're kind of screwing themselves over, because it's like, surely it costs more to have all this done digitally and through software than it would just have a button for most of the stuff and like an analog control. So would it not be easier to just do it the old-fashioned way and just have like a dial for like the aircon controls and stuff, and you don't have to worry about any software?
Oh, that was the other thing.
You just turn the thing and it'll go on or off.
It kept making a dinging noise when you went over, like, for example, 70 indicated, which as we all know isn't actually really 70.
Yeah, it's like 62.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, no, it's probably about 64.
Yeah, probably more
65.
like that.
It's depending on the vehicle. Or I think in my car it's 67 miles an hour.
On mine it's like 65.
Yeah. So it's
So it's like you're going 10% under the speed limit.
Yeah. So it's quite irritating.
That would do my head in.
But you can't turn it off.
Oh. Again, that's not like an expense.
It also
software flag.
This is not just a Maxus thing. This is a lot of commercial vehicles thing. They have a radar on the front to operate the forward collision avoidance, but they don't have adaptive cruise control.
Even though they have the input.
Yeah, even though they have the actual instruments for doing adaptive cruise control, they don't.
Is this a Tesla thing where it's like an optional extra, even though they all have the equipment to do it?
Yeah.
But you have to pay for like the software flag to say
Yeah.
this is enabled.
It's bullshit.
Oh, I hate that. Because it's like I used to remember old cars would have like blacked out buttons on like the center console.
Yeah.
Where like a feature would be, and you don't mind paying for that, right? Because it's like that's clearly stuff that isn't in the car.
Yeah.
That you're paying to have.
Oh, the best bit is, Mercedes, they don't have adaptive cruise control in their trucks.
At all.
I think you can pay
for
anyone. You kind of pay for it on a higher trim thing, but what they have instead is what they call predictive powertrain.
I already hate it. Oh my god, I already hate it.
And what that uses is it uses your map data to detect when you're approaching a junction and slow down for you.
Oh, that sounds dangerous, actually.
But obviously only when you're in cruise control.
That sounds like a recipe for the map data being wrong, and you suddenly slow down in the middle of a motorway.
I mean that side of that, if it did that and it had adaptive cruise control, it'd be great. The problem is, every time you're on a road where that would actually be useful, you're generally in heavy traffic, so you can't use it because there's a car in front of you already fucking slowing down.
Yeah.
So it's like, who at Mercedes went, I've got a great idea, and they were like, yeah, we're going to implement it, and then someone else was like, no, I've got a better idea. We're going to half bake it.
Yeah,
it's just like, why do Mercedes systematically swing and then miss? Like, honestly, like before I started driving professionally, I'd never driven a Mercedes, and I had this idea in my head that Mercedes meant quality. Since I started driving Mercedes vehicles, I've gone, no, Mercedes means they didn't really think it through and it's cheap and shit. But you pay like it's not.
Because like I'd always assumed that because you see so many Sprinter vans on the road, I was like, oh, these must be really rugged and like hard wearing.
No, they have horrendous rust issues.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they must be really durable, and that's why a ton of fleets buy them. But no, it's just like now I'm discovering
a ton of fleets buy them because they get good deals on them.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize that. I was like, oh, Mercedes must be like they pay extra to get the Sprinter vans because they're
yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's all I had to say about that. It just kind of.
I think we need another channel for Ethan's commercial vehicle reviews.
Yeah. It's just stupid bone. I really hate bad user experience design because it's especially when it like I get that not everyone can afford to have a big team of people who are reviewing this stuff, but a lot of design flaws are literally like, did you even actually get anybody to use this before you finalize the design?
It's like when you use a website.
Did you even use it?
Yeah, you use a website and you're like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Who read this and was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense?
Oh,
it doesn't need to be.
I've got the best one that I experienced this yesterday for the first time. So I drove yesterday. I drove an Iveco S-Way tractor unit, which is the front part of an articulated lorry, basically without the trailer, for the first time. And you know how a lot of cars, yours won't have this, but a lot of European cars and American cars will have a switch to the right of the steering wheel on the right-hand drive version, at least, which is for the headlight control. Yeah.
Yeah.
So think like Ford Fiesta, Mercedes, basically anything that's not Korean or Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the Iveco S-Way, it's on the left-hand side, but there is a switch on the right-hand side. Guess what that's for?
Oh, no.
The diff lock.
Oh, my God.
Which is something that you definitely do not want to accidentally turn on whilst you're driving.
No. It would be like if that was a big button for putting in reverse gear.
Yeah. Who fucking designed that? I get that it's cheap, but that's like going... They're like, no, we're not going to just make it cheap. We're going to actively make it shit. Like,
it's like cheap out on materials.
Yeah, they do that as well, but then they actively make it shit by putting controls in stupid places. It's like the other thing is, to adjust the steering wheel, there is a button on the floor, but it's not where everyone else puts the button on the floor in trucks. i.e. on the footrest on the left-hand side where your foot's doing nothing. No, it's in the middle in front of the column where the steering is, which means you have to move your seat backwards, so you're no longer in the position that you would be in when you need to grab the steering wheel. So you have to guess where you need the steering wheel to be. And then you have to put your foot in this awkward kind of cramped position and push it down just right because it doesn't really push down properly. And then you can move the steering wheel. Then you have to move your seat back forwards to see if it's in the right position. And then if it's not, then you have to move it back again and then try and move it again. Like, why? Why?
That is just like, you
so
wonder
stupid.
if it's, at that point there's like no cost saving. It's just
that it's like I say, it's like they're actively trying to make it shit.
Yeah.
It's I don't understand why they would do that. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, if you'd like to hear more reviews of commercial vehicles,
yeah,
then there's one place that you can tune in,
and that's somewhere
right here.
else.
Well, no, that's right here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, Audible, Deezer, YouTube, and YouTube Music, depending on where you're listening to us. And if you do want to hear more of Ethan's hot takes, you can go to
podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/scrambled-checksum. Or if you want to find us on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/@scrambled-checksum.
Wonderful CTA read. And in the meantime, you'll have to tide yourself over for commercial vehicle reviews until the next episode drops in 2 weeks, just before the new year. Our last episode of 2024 before we, I think... How does it work? Do we take January off?
We take January off, yeah.
So the viewers get episodes in January? Or do they not?
Well, we've kind of booked... This might be the last episode of the year. It depends what we decide to do.
Well, it will be the last... No, it won't be the last episode of the year.
Well, it depends whether we decide to record another one or not this year.
Okay.
We'll talk about offline. We'll either see you in 2 weeks or we'll see you next year.
2025,
February.
sometime. And if in the meantime, have a wonderful Christmas, have a wonderful New Year.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful time.
Happy New Christmas year.
Happy everything.
Have a good life.
We'll see you either for one more where we'll say the same thing again.
Don't buy a Mercedes or a Maxus.
There you go. Perfect advice. We'll see you in the next one.
Okay. We'll see you in our next podcast. Goodbye.
Bye. God, if you'd have done See You in Our Scrambled Future one more time, I would have...
You would have lost it. It would have been the last episode.
I would have lost the plot. It would have been the last episode of any year.